It's Advanced Windows. We kick it off next. We will announce number 25 straight ahead on our re-rank of the top 25 best players in the state of Utah for the college football 2023 season. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Wherever. Com 97.5 KZNS FM Colville, 1280 KZNS AM Salt Lake City, and KSL FM HD2 Salt Lake City Midband. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're listening to Hans and Scotty with their re-rank of the top 25 players in the state of Utah in 2023, presented by Advanced Window Products on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, let's do it. Get your Twitter fired up. Get those tweets ready to go. It's time for our top 25 re-rank.
This music's intense.
I know, right? This is impressive.
I'm all nervous about it now.
We've got you and I and Lloyd. We all stood around in Lloyd's office. We got the whiteboard out. We went through the stats. We went through all the analysis to come up with the top 25 players in the state of Utah.
We try to utilize everything, what they did to help the team win, how much the team did win, and what they did in those wins, along with their stats, along with what they are as a leader, what they mean to their side of the ball or to their special teams area, what they mean in particular just to the team's full success. And then you try to attach those stats and you get the top 25 that we've put together.
And by the way, this is are we thumbs up on the yes, we are. We are live at kslsports.com. So you can check us out there, see our ugly mugs on TV, or well, at least on the internet at kslsports.com. We haven't quite taken over TV yet. Nate does have boundaries. It's like, no. I'll let you guys on the internet, but not quite TV yet. So should we start? Let's do it. Here is number 25.
Number 25.
Hans, let's go to Ogden, shall we? From Weber State University, Winston Reed, 113 total tackles, linebacker. He had a sack and a half, a forced fumble. He even had an interception return for a touchdown. We were really focused early in on Utah, BYU, and Utah State. And then we started to talk to other coaches around the state, and they said, hey, there's a few other players you got to take a long, hard look at, and Winston Reed was one of those guys.
Well, and Winston Reed, okay, I get it. If anybody's out there, they're a Weber State fan, and they're instantly tweeting at us or upset about the number 25 pick, like Winston should be higher. You could absolutely make the argument that Winston should be higher. But a couple of things. You have to take a look at the conference he plays in, the games, the teams that he plays against, and you got to take a look at that, and you got to take it into account. There's a part of me that wishes Winston Reed would have went with Jay Hill. But Winston and a lot of those Weber State Wildcats, they stayed, and they played for Mickey Mental, and they played their butts off. And Winston Reed was one of them, but he's played out his senior year, 6'1", 230 pounds. He comes to Weber State from St. George, and as Scotty mentioned, put up 113 tackles. If you go by Weber State's numbers, they put him at 118 tackles. He had a sack and a half. He pretty much does it all. Got a couple of forced fumbles. He's got 2 forced fumbles. He had an interception on the season. He had 7 quarterback hurries. He's everything that you could want in a defensive nightmare / leader. But you do have to take into consideration the conference that he played in.
Which leads us to our next selection.
Number 24.
Let's go to Cedar City. Isaiah Wooden, wide receiver for Southern Utah, had just a remarkable year. Mr. Touchdown, 61 catches, over 900 yards receiving, and 14 touchdowns receiving on the season. 14 touchdowns, just a remarkable number.
He's a senior as well, and he's 5'9", 170 pounds. And you could argue that his 900 plus yards should be a little bit higher, but again, you just take a look at what conference he plays in and where he plays, and you don't want to hold that against a kid because they still play tremendous talent. They still see big time defenses, so you don't really want to hold it against them. But in order to be fair, you kind of have to. He also had 178 kick return yards. He had 60 punt return yards. He's electric. He's dynamic. He was great. He's a very shifty receiver. If you watch any film of him, he cuts well. If you just take a look at some of the big time games, his game against BYU, he had 6 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. His game against Arizona State, he had a couple of catches for 52 yards. But then he really got going later in the season against Stephen F. Austin, against Lincoln, against Abilene Christian, all 100-plus yard games. He had 4 touchdowns against Stephen F. Austin, and I think cemented himself in the top 25. But I think 24 is the right spot for Isaiah Wooden.
All right. You ready to get people a little cranky? Let's do it.
Number 23.
Tyler Batty, BYU, coming in at number 23. Now, look, I think this is going to get some people ticked off here. There's probably a lot of people thinking that he should be higher on this list. But you go through the numbers, a total of 57 tackles on the season. He did have 9 TFLs, 5.5 sacks on the season. But we wanted to see a little bit more from Tyler Batty this year.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he's coming back, and he'll be a top 25 member of the 60 and 60. You know, you would think that he'd be somewhere in the top 15, you would hope, in the 60 and 60. But there's no question. I think all of us wanted to see more. He finished the season, I believe, with officially, was it 5.5 sacks?
5.5 sacks, yeah.
Finished the season with 5.5 sacks. And what I would say to people as we go through the top 25, listen to the numbers, listen to the contributions, listen to the full activity, and you're going to see there are some incredible talent. In fact, it was tough just to narrow it down to 25. It was really tough to narrow it down to 25. You might be able to make an argument. I would listen to arguments. There's going to be a couple of other BYU defenders in the top 25, and you could make some arguments that Tyler Batty could be above them. But I just couldn't get behind really praising that BYU defensive line. And I know that Tyler Batty was an individual on a four-man front. He definitely was the best of what they had up front defensively. But I can't really get behind what they did as a defensive line unit. I can't really get behind what they did defensively. I felt like BYU started solid defensively. They had the shutout against Sam Houston and started solid against these teams defensively. But as the season went on, it was like, oh, man. Started to really lose them. Gave up 45 points to Iowa State, 35 points to Texas, 44 points to TCU, 40 points to Oklahoma State. You know, you're seeing big numbers, big totals given up. And then remember, teams started catching the edge and running off the edge, and teams started sitting in a very comfortable pocket because BYU couldn't get the pressure. So I know you can argue with it and be upset about it, but I feel okay about Tyler Batty. And Tyler Batty's going to be a top 15 member of the 60 and 60 next year.
And there are a lot of things, and I'm with you on this. I'm glad he's coming back, and I think it's important for him to come back. And I think that he can build on a lot of things going into next season, and certainly the familiarity of Jay Hill's program, another year under that. I anticipate he'll have a really great 2024 season.
What I'd like to see from Tyler, you know, he's weighing in at about 280 or 285. I'd like to see him get into that 265, 270, become fast twitch, and just become a true edge pass rush threat. Go get 11 sacks. Go get 12 sacks. Go get yourself some big-time numbers to get that recognition, because as these numbers sit, 5.5 sacks, 54 tackles, that won't get him drafted next year.
No. Well, and overall, when you look at BYU too, what were their sack totals last year? I'm trying to pull it up real quick.
11.
I mean, that honestly needs to be doubled. You know, they need to have a 20 sack season next year. And
BYU as a team?
As a team.
Yeah. Give me 28 minimum.
But
I don't even know.
And Tyler needs to be in that, to get drafted, he needs to be in that 8-9 range, right?
Correct. It's got to get him 8.5 to 9. I'd love to see him in the double digits. It'd be the first double-digit sacker since Bronson Kafusi back in whatever that was.
Whew, it's been a minute. All right, let's get to it. Our next selection might also be a bit controversial.
Number 22.
Hans, let's stay with BYU. Kingsley Suamataia.
Well, that could be controversial either way, really. If we're going to be just completely frank and honest on our top 25 re-rank, he could have been left out.
Yeah, and we had those conversations.
Yeah, he could have been left out. Now, Kingsley is going to be a draft pick, and Kingsley has incredible talent. Incredible talent. Kingsley underperformed. I think if you could bring his old O-line coach in and ask him straight up, did he hit expectations? He'd probably say no. I didn't think he had expectations. But I do think that when he was engaged and when he was in the game and he was in the moment, I do think he was an unstoppable force at that tackle position. But then there was these moments, he blinked. Why'd he blink? Why did he drop his head? Why did he rest for a second? That's a huge sack to give up. That's a huge play off the backside to give up. And it just wasn't the year that you wanted him to have. But that does not take away from the fact that he's got every tool to be a Penei Sewell at the next level.
The skill set's there.
Yes, he is a Penei Sewell type athlete and tackle. So then you start to look at it and you're like, all right, well, they fired the O-line coach. Why'd they do that? How much of it has to do with how Kingsley Somatea performed?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it would have been fun to see him and TJ, because I think TJ Woods would have been very good for Kingsley, and I think Kingsley would have been very good for TJ Woods.
Well, I know this. I know that the O-line there at BYU, they are getting coached hard by TJ Woods.
Yeah. And that's the one thing. And, I told you that I had some familiarity with him at Utah State, and I'd been around him. That's going to be a very different O-line room.
Yep.
And that's one thing that BYU needed, was some toughness. They needed a little nasty. They needed a lot of aggression in that room. And they're going to get that with TJ.
Yep.
They're going to get that with him in a big, big way. And it'll be fascinating to see if that translates on the field. I think it will. I think you're going to see even if the talent level may not be as high as it was last year, I think you're going to see better production from next year's BYU offensive line.
The staple will be Connor Pay, who decided to return, and Waylon Napaweho. Those will be your staples. I really feel like you're going to get some big-time contributions from one or two other guys, but those two should anchor that offensive front.
All right. There you go. We are 4 down. It's time for our next selection.
Number 21.
Zamiah Vaughn, our first Ute, comes off the board. 6'2", 185-pound cornerback, is checking in again at number 20. 21, excuse me, my bad.
45 tackles. He has an interception on the year. He had 6 pass deflections. I think that his numbers would probably be even higher, but I felt like Zamiah Vaughn, for the most part, really held down the edge. Lloyd, some thoughts on Zamiah?
Oh, I think Zamiah was phenomenal this year with his pass breakups. He was, I mean, you saw him there a couple times blowing up the edge when on a bubble screen. Like, the guy was extremely active at the cornerback position.
Be fascinating to see exactly, when you look back at what he meant to this team and what he meant to the defense. So many injuries across the board for the University of Utah. A lot of shuffling that had to be done. But Zamiah Vaughn was constant. That was one guy that, you really could count on for that U defense this season.
What is the trajectory? Where is Zamiah Vaughn headed? I can't remember. Is he coming back or is he leaving for the league? I can't remember.
No, he's back.
He's back?
Huh?
That's good news for Utah's defense.
Yeah. For a defense that needed some good news, that certainly is helpful.
Yeah, he'll be a leader. And, just multiple big plays. We're getting to watch these highlights as they come across. Great job by Nate and Maddie and others to make this kind of a fun deal. You can go over to kslsports.com and you can watch the highlights and you can kind of see the announcements as they come live time. But Zamiah Vaughn, right there, just coming in on the sack. They used him on corner.
They used him quite a bit in quarter blitzes this year too.
Yeah,
I mean, he's only credited with a half sack on the season, but they brought a lot of pressure with him.
But he's extremely active. I mean, back in 2022, he had like almost, I think, 10 pass deflections. Like, he's phenomenal.
All right. Now it's time for our next selection.
Number 20.
Let's stay with the University of Utah. Hans, let's talk about the big uglies up front. Keaton Bills checking in at number 20 from that O-line.
Keaton Bills is a NFL offensive guard and potentially an NFL swing lineman, which would mean he could snap or play guard. He could be a pretty quick seventh man rotator. He could do a lot of things, I think, in the league. He is a league-worthy offensive lineman. I expect Keaton Bills to have a 6 or 7 year NFL career. That's the type of body and drive and work ethic that he has. So a couple of the highlights that I did of Keaton Bills throughout the years are goal line highlights. And he was classic at taking his D tackle and driving him into the end zone, driving him into the ground in goal line situations. But he just universally across the board, he's just solid at everything you ask him to do. Solid at his pulls, solid at his pass sets, really solid in his combo blocks. He's solid at getting out in open field and picking up blocks. And he has been one of my top 5 offensive linemen as far as enjoyment of watching him play football. He's one of my top 5 in enjoyment because he's buried so many people in his time at the University of Utah. I don't know what his pancake number is, his total pancake number is. I'd love to see it.
Do they keep track of that?
Oh, yeah.
Up there?
Yeah. Oh, sure. In fact, I could probably send a text out and get his pancake numbers over the years, but they have to be significant because he buried a lot of people. And, you know, when you take a look at the production over the last 4 or 5 years, whatever running back that you're talking about with the University of Utah, Keaton Bills is largely behind that production. He's behind the Jaquindon Jackson production, the Sione Vaki production. And he's been around now, 3 years as a starter for the University of Utah?
Well, yeah. And I think the other thing, too, when you look this Utah offense with the quarterback issues, with the running back injuries, and everything else that piled on this year, again, we talk about consistency. One thing that you can always count on is the fact that Utah's offensive line got the job done, and it didn't really matter who was running the ball. They were going to have some success. And that's because you had guys up front like Keaton Bills, who plays just with a certain nasty. There's guys that just play violent, and Keaton Bills is one of those guys.
NFL offensive lineman.
Yeah. NFL is going to be drooling over that guy. Absolutely. All right, that leads us to our first break. We are 5 picks in. We will announce number 19. We'll make it all the way down to 13, and then we will announce 12 through 1 coming up on tomorrow's show beginning at 2 o'clock. But Nate, Jake, hanging out with us here in studio. If you're not happy with any of our selections, you can contact Nate directly.
At 801-850-9100.
Yes. And while you're there, Nate will say, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you $3,000 off when you swap out 10 windows or more.
And you leave happy. Everyone's happy.
So, Nate, really quick, you've watched Keaton Bills for a couple of years. Keaton Bills is the real deal up front, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. And you know, it always starts up front. And I'm a big guy of, I just love offensive line, defensive linemen. And obviously I'm a big proponent of, it all starts up front. And when you have somebody like Keaton Bills leading the charge for that running back room and protecting a quarterback, someone who's reliable, who stays consistent, who's a leader, who guys look to for, his advice, his, just approval with anything up front. It's fun.
So when you get $3,000 off, you can also go with some great financing options, Jake. There's so many great options here for you to be able to get into the because a lot of people always think, okay, well, this is our nice house here, but we're going to move into something nicer, something bigger. Well, guess what? A lot of us now have 2.5%, 2.75%, 3% interest rates. We're not giving that interest rate up.
You're staying home. You're staying put.
So you might as well invest in your own home and make your current home your dream home, and it starts with those windows.
Yeah, and that's you said a really great word that I like to focus on is invest. And windows are an investment. That's how we view them. It is not just an expenditure where it's expense money going out down the drain, but it is money that you put back into your home to increase the value of your home, to lower the monthly cost of your energy bills, and to really improve the aesthetic and the comfort in your home. There's really like 4 large positives when replacing your windows, and that the investment is just key. And we have those financing options that you're talking about. If you need to make you need new windows, that you're staying put, but you have these old aluminum windows or old leaky, drafty windows that are kind of fogged up, where the seal has failed. We just ask, give us a call.
Hans has fogged up a few windows in his day.
Yeah, I believe that.
Oh, I'm just saying, back in the day, and then he got new windows and he's in good shape now. Everything's fine. Everything's good.
So we can help, and we can help you.
That's called a seal failure.
That's what happens.
So when you're taking a hot shower and stuff like that, that's
yeah, seal failure.
You said seal failure?
Yeah, that's in the window industry. We call it the seal failure.
Oh, man. I don't even know what to say to you, Scotty. But here's the deal. This is what I do know. Advanced windows. And like they said, if you do have any type of leak in that window, if you do feel the draft, it's time to replace those windows. What is the typical age of a window you guys are replacing right now?
That's a really good question. Anything from like 1960s, we do that. Utah has some old homes.
Yeah.
So stuff from like the 60s, 70s, 80s. The thing that is more alarming is it's homes like 2015. Like homes that I look at, like consider a new home, and the vinyl windows that were put in were just a builder grade that were meant to last 5 years. And the vinyl is warping from the outside, and the inside is the seal failure that we talked about, and is like letting air in. And that's really, it is a range of ages with the windows. So really that's why you call and have one of our specialists come out to your house.
Let's go. 801-850-9100. You get $3,000 off. You can also go with some great financing options. You're going to get so many great opportunities, but we want you to get that bid out there right now. 801-850-9100. It's 801-850-9100. Advanced Windows, radio on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Dinner at JCW's, courtesy of the Dish Professionals. Call now and get the best price guarantee at 801-424-DISH. That's 801-424-DISH. Offer ends 4/10/24. Separate subscription services required. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
I started struggling with ED about 3 years ago. Nutrition, diet, supplements, nothing helped. But then I heard about focused wave therapy on a podcast. And then a friend told me about Happy Valley Clinic. And now everything's just fine.
This is Brock Roberts announcing Happy Valley Clinic has just opened a second clinic in Murray. Growth of our reputation statewide as Utah's most effective men's and women's intimacy health clinic has made it necessary to open our second clinic, now open in Murray. In addition to our clinic in Provo, both showcasing all of the latest, most effective ED treatment technologies as shown in major clinical research studies for over a decade. Men's ED is largely a vascular issue, and only Happy Valley Clinic has all of the latest and most effective technologies for addressing ED. Clinically proven ED therapies that are safe, pain-free, and you can skip the pills. Go to happyvalleyclinic.com, and all who call within the next 5 minutes will receive a gift of your choosing when you come in for your consultation. Call right now, 833-ED-NO-FUN. It's 833-ED-NO-FUN.
This is your Jazz at 30 update on your exclusive home of Utah Jazz basketball, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It is your Jazz at 30 update right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jazz coming off that tough loss. First game of that 6-game road trip. Jazz had opportunity to win it, but Will Hardy talked about the last no cut here. Okay. All right. Well, Jazz will be back in action coming up later on tonight. You'll hear all the action right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Keep listening. We'll be giving away tickets here in just a moment and continuing on with our top 25 re-rank right here on the Aggie Sport, or right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Counting down the best players in 2023. This is Hans and Scotty's re-rank of the top 25 players in the state of Utah in 2023. Presented by Advanced Window Products on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, we continue on with our re-rank of at least the top 25 players in the state of Utah from the 2023 season. Before we do that, though, we still have some business to take care of. Let's give away some Jazz tickets. Caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. You win a pair of tickets. See the Jazz and the 76ers on February 1st at Delta Center. Jazz Ticket Tuesday brought to you by UCCU. Love where you bank. Again, 801-575-ZONE. Caller number 12, and you will win tickets. All right, Hans, let's continue on the countdown, shall we? Let's get to our next selection.
Number 19.
Keanu Tavasa. Freshman defensive tackle, came up big. 13 games for the Utes, ended up with 27 total tackles, 6 TFLs, couple sacks along the way. Future's very bright for this young man.
So there are some guys that we had to throw out numbers to an extent. Keanu Tavasa is one of those guys. What's absolutely mind-blowing with Keanu Tavasa, coming into the season, it was all about Simote Pepa. It was all about Junior Tafuna. It was all about 3 or 4 other defensive linemen, including Van Fillinger and O'Toole and all these guys. And who was the staple?
Yeah.
From the very first snap to the very last snap, the guy that you could count on, the guy you could rely on in the middle was Keanu Tavasa. Didn't take plays off. Didn't take injury time. He was just available, and he was more than available. He was a gap sustainer. He could chase plays down. When he hits you, you feel him hit you. He was so present for the University of Utah all year long. And if you're kind of following along on the stream, comes through with a beautiful pass rush and ends up with a strip sack. Just a hammering hit right down the middle. And then the next play follows up with him chasing a play down from the backside. So he's got the speed to do it. He's got the athleticism. He is a fun player to watch in the middle. And he's just a baby. He's a baby in the game.
That's the thing. Like the ceiling is just ridiculously high for him.
And so next year we'll probably see him somewhere around the top 10, top 15 of our 60 and 60 for 2024.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially with some of the movement, the other guys going to other schools and graduating and stuff like that. This guy is going to be really special. And it just seems like there's certain people that are just DNA bred for Kyle Whittingham's system and this Utah system. And this guy is just like, you could not have created a better player to excel at the University of Utah than this guy. He's tailor-made for the system. He has all the attributes, the skill set, everything else. And it was just fun to watch him game by game by game. I mean, just right out of the gate in that Florida game. I mean, it's just like, boom, this guy is making play after play, and he is going to go down as one of the better players at the University of Utah before it's all said and done.
If I'm remembering right, not mentioned in the 60 and 60.
No.
He'll be one of the few guys that, came out of nowhere to take a commanding lead and finish in the top 25.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next selection.
Number 18.
Number 18, let's go back to Ogden, Utah, and now to Provo, Utah. Jack Kelly, Weber State linebacker, played last year at Weber State and will suit up for the Cougars next year.
All right, so here's the deal. And I know that people hear the name and they're like, really? Number 18? Really? A Weber State guy? Really? There's a reason that BYU put a lot of resources in to go get Jack Kelly. Now, we could talk about his 56 tackles that he had at that linebacker position. And we could talk about his 12 TFLs. But this is where I want to spend. This is where I want to spend my time. Because BYU has to increase their pass rush. They have to get more pressure. They got to get more quarterback hits. They got to have a better presence in their blitzing and their nose to the quarterback. And that's what Jack Kelly did so good for Weber State. 10.5 sacks for Weber State on the season. He also ended up forcing 4 fumbles. A few of those were off strip sacks. He had 2 fumble recoveries. He had an interception. So he's a big playmaker, but he's a big-time sack artist. So now I can bring him into this BYU system, and I can start running him on some different switch blitzes. Whether I'm running on him a switch blitz with Tyler Batty, or I'm trying to force him somehow into the middle off some type of switch blitz in the middle. I'm running him on twists. I can throw so many different action movements to him. He can match up off the edge in a one-on-one set against an offensive tackle and beat him. And not just beat him with speed, but he can beat him with power. He's built extremely well. He's really fast. He sweeps hands really well. His pass rushes are great. So, BYU fans, if you're looking for the next presence, the guy that can get the pressure, it's probably going to be Jack Kelly next year, or at least a large part of it should be Jack Kelly next year.
Well, and this is something that we've talked about. I mean, this is, the 11 sacks, that 11 number is just atrocious.
Yeah.
You cannot win in the Big 12 with 11 sacks. You just can't. And the Big 12 is loaded with edge pass rushers. It's one thing that this conference has a bunch of. So you have to have those guys that can get around a tackle, that can, the speed rush to the outside, but can also hold that edge. That'll be interesting to see if he can do that. Because I have little doubt this guy's got the speed and athleticism to get to the quarterback, but when it's 2nd and 6, can he hold that edge?
There you go.
And that's going to be a big question.
Yeah. You'll have to replace him out. You'll have to.
So you anticipate being like a 3rd down specialist or passing?
He is going to be what a Trevor Riley was.
Okay.
He'll be more the hybrid outside linebacker, move some different pressures. He can play inside, and maybe they do play him inside, but I think he's going to line up at the line of scrimmage and give you quite a bit of pass rush. I mean, I think that he could be more of a presence than even a Banya, who just didn't do anything in pressures. He didn't do anything. I think he had 1 sack on the season. And when you're that stand-up edge technique, you've got to get more pressure. So whatever they do with this guy, get him to the quarterback. He's got a nose for it. He was a half sack away from matching BYU's total all by his lonesome.
All by himself.
All by his lonesome. Half sack away from matching BYU total. So bring that sack presence, put it in Jay Hill's meeting room, and get it into Big 12 play and see if he can do some great things.
All right, let's get to it. Our next selection.
Number 17.
Hans, let's return to the offensive line. This one for the University of Utah. Michael Mokofisi coming in at number 17.
So Moko and Bills, this was a tough one for me. As the three of us were sitting around, we knew both of them would be in the top 25.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, well, who finishes higher? And that's a tough one. The reason Moko finished a little bit higher than Keaton Bills, in my opinion, and Lloyd, if you got a different opinion on this, I just feel like he's another step of aggression. I think Bills is maybe more well-rounded, maybe makes less mistakes. Mokofisi breaks more holes, blows more people up, picks more guys up on pull-arounds. He's just a little bit more nasty than Bills. Lloyd, any thoughts there?
No, I think you're spot on. He's got a little bit of that anger, a little extra anger playing that offensive line position.
Again, you go back to the issues that Utah was dealing with this year at injuries at running back, injuries at quarterback. There were a lot of issues that Utah dealt with offensively that they normally don't necessarily have to work through, but offensive line, they continue to play really well. And Mokofisi just continues to dominate play after play after play. He and Bills just doing their thing. And again, Nate and everybody else doing a great job with the highlight package. And
yeah, these are great.
These are just great angles of the damage this guy can do.
And his durability was really good through the season too.
Yeah, and Moko can play center. Moko can play guard. He is a switch player as well. He's an NFL player. Both Bills and Moko will get time in the NFL. And I just felt like he was a real anchor on the inside. He could pretty much do anything that Coach Harding needed him to do as well. You know, if Coach Harding had to go to him and say, hey, come to the outside or go in and snap or
there's a lot of versatility there.
Yeah, whatever you got to do, go do it. And that's one thing as an offensive lineman in the NFL, you have to be versatile like that. Nice back. That's a backside scoop pickup on a backside blitz, which I love that too. When you've got a guard that keeps his head up, when a middle linebacker's coming off the backside and he comes off the D tackle to pick up the backside backer that would have made a tackle for a loss off the backside scrape, you got yourself a lineman.
Yeah.
I love Moko.
Guy that can certainly do a lot of damage and is certainly going to be an NFL pick. And what do you think? Another 6-7 year career for that guy?
Yeah. Yep. Same as Bills.
Yeah. All right. And before we go to break, let's sneak in one more selection.
Number 16.
Devon Booth, running back at Utah State, first Aggie off the board. Leading rusher for Utah State, 120 carries, 805 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaged about 70 yards a game. Look, Utah State had a 3-headed running back core this year with Devon Booth, Rasul Faison, Robert Briggs, all 3 really good running backs. Utah State ran the ball for nearly 2,400 yards on the season. And we went back and forth a little bit. Booth was the leading rusher, and that's why he got the nod. Faison was right there. He was deep into conversations and making the list. He had 740 yards and 5 touchdowns, but Booth was the mainstay. Dealt with a couple injury issues along the way, but for the most part was durable. He runs the ball hard. He attacks in between the tackles really well, but he still has the speed to get to the outside and burn you. And remember, this is a guy that only had 10 attempts per game on the season, but still had over 800 yards. That's a pretty remarkable number when you consider what there wasn't a guy. There were 3 guys, so he had to split those carries, but yet he still had a huge per rush average of 6.7. You just don't see that number very much. And he's back next year. Faison's back next year. Briggs is back next year.
Jeez.
That whole running back core is back next season.
Which was responsible for close to 2,000 yards.
Yeah, if you could just combine those 3 running backs, they have nearly 2,000 yards between them.
Yeah,
about 1950.
That's what you call being in good hands. And this one was a tough one for us because We're taking the leading rusher, the state leading rusher, and putting him at number 15 as far as leading rusher by yards.
Yes. Yeah.
And putting him at number 15. So that was a tough one for all of us.
And again, your leading rusher in the state who only averaged 10 carries a game.
And
6.7 yards a carry.
It's big time.
Big time player. It'll be fun to see how that comes together next year in Logan with those three guys all coming back.
Offensive line in front of them.
And a new revamped offensive line. And let's see what the quarterback situation looks. Is Bryson Barnes going to be handing off to Devon Booth next year?
I don't know. I don't want to juice up the Aggie fans too much, but the Anderson boys are going to be a lot of fun.
Teague and Trey.
Yeah, I cannot wait, man. And you throw in one or two other pickups that they've got at the offensive front, and it could be really special. And by the way, if I'm Teague and Trey, and why am I forgetting the other offensive line? Miley.
Yeah.
I am licking my chops that I got those guys behind me.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We will announce number 15, 14, and 13 coming up next. Hans and Scotty, it is your top 25 re-rank of the top 25 college football players in the state of Utah. We'll continue on next, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
.5, the KSL Sports Zone, and online at KSLSports.com. All presented by Advanced Window Products.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, it is time for you to get that vehicle that you deserve, right? A vehicle that you love to drive. You know it's going to be on the road for a long time. And the one place you need to go is Tim Daly Nissan in Murray, 4528 South State Street. The great thing about these guys is they care about you and your dollar and your time. Those are things that are very important to you. And they know that they want to make sure you're taken care of. So they're going to get you in and out quickly. They're going to give you more for your trade than anybody else. They're going to give you some great rebates, promotions, 0% financing on a bunch of those new vehicles. And they're going to give you a forever warranty, which means as long as you own that vehicle, regardless of, years or miles, that vehicle is going to be covered. Engine goes out, transmission goes out. Guess what? It doesn't matter. It's covered. Go down there right now. Talk to Rich and the crew. They'll help you out. It's Tim Daly Nissan in Murray, 4528 South State Street. That's Tim Daly Nissan in Murray.
You're listening to Hans and Scotty with their re-rank of the top 25 players in the state of Utah in 2023, presented by Advanced Window Products on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome back. You are listening to the Hans and Scotty re-rank of the top 25 best players in the state of Utah for the college football season, the 2023 campaign. So as we wrap up the show, we got three more selections, 15, 14, and 13. We'll announce number 12 through number 1 coming up on tomorrow's show. So let's not waste any time. Let's get to it. Hans, let's get to number 15.
Number 15.
Karini Reed, linebacker, Utah, checking in. Hands at number 15.
Man, he's so good. He is so good. This is one of my favorite guys off that University of Utah defense, and he put up some fantastic numbers this year, Scotty. But you just talk about the base staple of this defense, and I think it goes to Karini Reed. I think he is the when you're running your base defense and you're asking a guy to be where he's supposed to be and make a clean tackle, Karini Reed does not make mistakes. He's also a big playmaker. You know, I was just talking about Jack Kelly and him being a big-time playmaker. 4 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, interceptions, 10.5 sacks. Well, that's a lot like Karini Reed. Karini Reed is going to get you the interceptions. He's going to force fumbles. He's going to pull off fumble recoveries, and he's going to be around big plays as well. And that really helps you with high marks when we do our top 25 remake. We love playmakers. The three of us love playmakers.
Guys that just all of a sudden in big moments just pop and make that play.
Yep.
And he's that guy that does it time and time again.
He is that guy.
Single-handedly beat UCLA.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, that was all Karini Reed.
9 tackles in that game. Missed a couple, missed the Baylor game, missed the Arizona game. But, I mean, just continue to make play after play after play all season long for the Utes. All right. Let's get to our next selection.
Number 14.
Let's go back to Logan. Again, a 3-headed monster at wide receiver for Utah State this year. And again, not all of these guys are going to make the top 25, but coming in at our next selection is Terrell Vaughn, leading the state in total receptions, had 89 catches on the season for 933 yards, 11 touchdowns, 71 yards per game. But Hans, if you look at Jalen Royals, Terrell Vaughn, Micah Davis, all three of those receivers had individually had more receiving yards than anybody else in the state of Utah. Outside of Southern Utah, if you include BYU, Utah, and Utah State. That's the kind of yardage that they were able to put up through the air, and a lot of quarterback issues. You started with Cooper Legaw, then you had McKay Hillstead, then Levi Williams finished off the season. They had issues on the offensive line as well. But yet one thing Utah State could do throughout the season is throw the football. And Terrell Vaughn, again, 89 catches, over 900 yards, 11 touchdowns. Heck of a season for him.
Okay, so let me just put that in perspective for people. So 89 receptions. Chase Roberts for BYU had 42. Isaac Rex for BYU had 34. This guy had 89 receptions. Darius Lassiter had 29. So when we're talking about Terrell Vaughn and the numbers that he put up through the air, I also need people to remember that Utah State, at times, they were top 5 in the country in passing.
Yes.
They're moving that ball around. And they were going through a lot of different quarterbacks, too. So they had big-time receivers, and Terrell Vaughn is right there with the best. 89 receiving receptions, pulling in 89 catches in a year.
Yeah. And he was the guy that we all looked at the beginning of the season and said this was going to be the most dynamic player on the team. Well, that ended up being Jalen Royals, and we'll end up talking about him tomorrow. Spoiler. But Terrell Vaughn, I mean, there's so many things they could do with him. They could line him up in the backfield. They could have him as a, running the ball out of the backfield. They ran a lot of wide receiver screens with him. There was a lot of dynamic elements to his game. And he's done. His eligibility is out, so he will be moving on. But it'll be interesting to see. He's not big, 5'7", 175, so it'll be tough for him to make it at the next level. But he can return punts. He is a kick returner. He had a kick return for a score last year against Weber State. So almost had a couple this year that he took back. So punt return, kick return, those are all part of his skill set. And when you see a guy like Devin Tompkins at Tampa Bay still hanging in there and making plays, there might be a role for him in the league. All right. And one more as we wrap up today's edition. And this one's going to be an interesting one. Lloyd, let's get to it.
Number 13.
Coming in at 13, Hans, let's go back to the University of Utah, although he is no longer at the University of Utah. Jaquindon Jackson coming in at 13.
Somebody help make sense of Jaquindon's move to Arkansas for me, please. Somebody.
It's got to be a lot of money. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, so if Arkansas comes in with money, then I'm the University of Utah, and I'm like, okay, well, how much are you saying? 1.2 million. All right, well, geez, I don't know. Take the basketball team's trucks away, and let's find a way to get that money over to him. I don't care. We're paying Jaquindon Jackson. And it's not just about the way he runs the ball. It's what he does on the periphery. He is, in my opinion, he was the best blitz pickup running back in setting pockets in the state. He was fantastic. Whatever you asked of him, it would direct snaps or screen sets or movement to the outside. He ran fullback. They actually, when they were direct snap to Swanee Valley, Jaquindon Jackson became a fullback and would start blocking off the edge and lead blocking for him. So somebody get him back. Somebody do something. Go get him back.
Go get in that car. We're going to go get him back.
I want to see Coach Whittingham shut the door on a 69 Mustang and say, you know what we do? I want to see Andy Ludwig shut the door on a tail off the lot. Say, you know what we do? We get him back. You got a quarterback.
Yep.
You've got a tight end.
Yep.
You've got an incredible defense returning. Just give me Jaquindon.
He's top 5 had he stayed healthy.
Yes.
He just couldn't stay healthy this year.
Right. He still ended with what? Nearly 800 yards?
Yes.
797 yards, 4 touchdowns. And again, dealing with injuries all season long. I know the kid from Idaho is expected to be good. Jalen Glover, I think we know who he is at this point. So Utah, I mean, it's not as if there was a playing time issue. It's not as if there were, well, everybody else around me is leaving. There's not that issue. Isaiah Wooden, number 24 from Southern Utah. Tyler Batty, 23. Kingsley Suamataea, 22. Zemiah Vaughn, 21. Keaton Bills, 20. Keanu Tanavasa at 19. Jack Kelly at 18. Michael Mokafisi at 17. Devon Booth at 16. Karini Reed at 15. Terrell Vaughn, 14. Jaquindon Jackson coming in at number 13. We'll announce number 12 through number 1 coming up on tomorrow's show. And remember, this is all brought to you by Advanced Windows. Nate Orchard, who's always number 1 in our books.
Number 1 on the field, number 1 in your hearts.
Nate would have been number 1 on the re-rank.
Oh, yeah. I think that's pretty safe to say.
Guys, please.
Yeah.
You're being too nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple.
Please.
Don't. Anytime
Stop.
somebody puts up nearly 20 sacks in a season, is a pretty incredible season.
Some good times.
I bet those were some good times.
Those were really some fun memories.
There's so many great opportunities for people to get those windows swapped out. There's really no excuse. Great financing options. If you want to go the $3,000 off, you can do that. That ends today. And then the fact that you can get those things installed in 8 to 10 weeks. I mean, come on, there's no reason, Nate. People shouldn't be doing this.
There's no reason. And again, if you've given it a thought of, wanting to replace your windows, you just want a little more information, that's where we'd love for you to give Todd a call. Have him, he's one of our factory specialists. Have him come by your home, educate you on our products, and have you understand really, what it is that can help improve the energy efficiency of your home.
Yeah, it's one thing just to remember is that we are the factory. And so by giving you that $3,000 off, we have pricing power. with we don't have a dealer markup. We're not buying the windows somewhere else and have that cost that we have to then mark up to sell them. We build the windows and we sell them direct. And because of that, you get a higher quality window for a better price. And just as Nate's saying, echoing that, give Todd a call anytime today. Just get on the schedule today to get that $3,000 off. And you call him tonight, 7 p.m. He's going to be warm and snuggled up.
Eating his meatloaf.
Eating his meatloaf.
Ma, where's the meatloaf?
Yeah. Give him a call and just get on the schedule. He'll come out to your house in the next week or so and really help you understand how you can transform the look of your home and how you can, with those new windows, sit next to the window and not have that cold draft coming in, without that heat coming in. And you can just have that comfort of your home year round.
Lifetime warranties on these windows too. Everybody needs to know lifetime warranties. So if
we're not going anywhere,
pops,
not going anywhere.
Something happens, they're right here to take care of you.
That's right.
801-850-9100. You're going to call Todd right now. Todd's the auctioneer.
Yeah. I'm not joking.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Next time, we'll have him tomorrow. We'll have him call in. We'll have him call in and get him. Yeah. He'll rattle something off for us.
801-850-9100. You're going to get great financing options. You can take $3,000 off if you'd like when you swap out 10 windows or more. Factory direct, affordable windows. Call right now. Get the bid and the financing options. And that's all done right on the spot. And I think that's really important because a lot of times you get people out and then you have to wait 3 or 4 weeks to get the bid back. And like, oh, maybe it's in your junk email or, no, like just tell me right now what I'm dealing with.
Right there. Yep. You will have the day that he comes out, an hour later, you'll know exactly what you're dealing with.
I love it. 801-850-9100. It's Advanced Windows. You guys are going to hang out with us again tomorrow as we're
looking forward to it.
Go 12
we got
through
day
1.
2.
Let's do it.
Day 2. We'll be back.
JJ and Alex next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.